notice the BRIC countries all have relatively large populations. These do as well. Our population can either be a huge asset or a huge liability, depending on whether we can channel it into productive work or unproductive activities. And these structures, these institutions, these sort of very boring things like collecting the numbers, are what actually makes you able to do these things and deliver on these things in the long term. So we really do need to think about how we balance long-term investments versus short-term showy things that you can open with a ribbon.
Okay, let's quickly look at foreign investment. The first few years of ex-President Obasanjo's tenure, he spent traveling around the world. He was hardly at home, and he said he was looking to bring foreign investment into Nigeria. How much success did Nigeria achieve from those travels, and how many more jobs did that effort create? Since we still find ourselves in a position of unemployment.
I think the only statistic I remember about 2013 is about 12 billion or something like that in foreign direct investment into Nigeria. Now, what does that really mean? If it was 20 billion, what does that mean? If it's 40 billion, what does that mean? See, I'm firmly of the view that if the environment is conducive to investment, you don't need to beg foreigners to come to Nigeria. They will come because it is their job to look for where they need to make investments. They've got people who are scouring around the whole globe looking for investment opportunities. They will come. So I think it's about the internal environment that we create here that will attract them as opposed to begging them to bring money. They will bring money. Nobody likes to go put money where they're not going to have significant returns. So I think it's about getting the environment right. And then publicizing what you've done right, and investment itself will come. So one more thing, that's also the issue of domestic investment. Okay, that's domestic investment. That's a lot of money in Nigeria looking for opportunities. So it's also about the internal environment. If the internal environment is right, people will invest. If people have ideas about what they're going to invest in, they will invest. If the power sector reforms are successful, they will invest. If subsidies removed, they will invest. That's so many things.
Okay. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, I know you wanted to say something about what Mr. Igbokwe is just saying, but also investment. We'll also want to take a quick look at how all of this wrap up in terms of inclusive growth across the continent, not just for Nigeria. But we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Yes, you're welcome back, and we are still looking at the World Economic Forum Africa coming up in May 2014. That's the topic of conversation this morning, and we still have in the studio Mr. Igbokwe and Mr. Alli. Mr. Igbokwe was just talking about investment, but I'll come quickly to you, Mr. Alli. From what you've just heard, you seem to have something to add to what the points that's just been made.
Yes, actually, although he did take the point I was going to make a little bit, which relates to domestic investment. The truth of the matter is that I think we chase foreign investment too much. Really, what makes investments attractive is the same for both domestic investment and for foreign investment. By working on, making your environment more attractive for investments generally, I think that is what governments should aim at. Generally across Africa, especially if you compare us with Asian countries which have grown very quickly, our level of investment is very low. In Nigeria, I think it is something around 15% of GDP, whereas in China, at the peak of their growth, it was 50%, and it's come down now, and I think it's somewhere around 30%.
Okay. So when you look at the another issue that some economists have raised is that of the ease of doing business and setting up business in a place like Nigeria. How does that influence? Where are we at, and how does that influence the growth that we would have expected, especially in the area of investment?
Well, as Ken said, investment is an international thing, and people are comparing investments either explicitly or implicitly between Nigeria and other countries, and make the investment choice dependent on where they feel they will get the best returns. A couple of points. One is that a number of years ago, Professor Paul Collier, the well-known economist who's done a lot of work studying the Nigerian economy, at a conference said that Nigerians own something like $100 billion of assets abroad. And he also said he believed that most of these were legitimate assets, not the fruits of corruption. So that is a choice that and this was many years ago, I should say. That was a choice.
So that number would have increased.
It may have decreased, actually, because because Nigeria has become more attractive for investments over the past few years.
So quite a big chunk of that money might have come back.
If you look at the investments that have been made, I really don't know. I don't frankly know how I got the numbers. But the point I was making was that at least at that point in time, Nigerians were making a choice to invest abroad. Since that time, we've seen massive investments in the cement sector, in the power sector. Nigeria today is the largest recipient of foreign direct investment in sub-Saharan Africa. We in AFC over the last few years have approved something like $2 billion worth of investments for Nigeria. We haven't actually invested all of those because conditions need to be right for that, but cumulatively that's what we've approved. We've invested almost $200 million in the recent power privatization, and we're looking at investing more in terms of the rehabilitation of the power sector going forward. So I think that there's a lot to be done in Nigeria, but we also shouldn't be too negative actually about what has been achieved over the past decade.
Talking about being negative, I heard tell about a young South African who was transferred to Nigeria to head a small multinational company. And he got to the airport and he said, "I smell money." That being said, in the last 10 or so years, Mr. Igbokwe, which sectors have attracted the most foreign investment, and how has that impacted on job creation?
I think, without thinking about it, I'd probably say telecoms, and then financial services.
Obviously.
And now power. There's also been significant domestic investment. Let's not forget that. I mean, you're talking about cement factories. The Dangote Group is not the only investment in cement in Nigeria and in the rest of Africa by Nigerians. Okay, so what one is saying is that it's really an issue of the environment being conducive, the sector being conducive. Look at the intervention of government in telecoms. Took off. Currently we're experiencing the intervention in power. It's taking off.
Is it?
It is taking off. Okay. It is taking off. It takes time.
Can I? Yes, I want to make that point. Power, the power assets were handed over 3 or 4 months ago. We cannot expect there to be a sea change in the power situation in 3 months. I mean, people are still, frankly, taking over those assets and getting behind the desks and understanding what they've bought. So people who are saying that, the power privatization hasn't been successful because, there isn't a visible change after 3 months, really have expectations that, are totally unrealistic. One point I would like to make, and tying it to the World Economic Forum, I've been involved in different capacities in investments in Nigeria since about the year 2000, let's say. And one thing I've noticed, which is unfortunate for us here, is that Nigeria's press abroad is much worse than the reality. So what I found is that actually physically bringing people to Nigeria to see what is on the ground has a very positive impact for us. And it sort of ties in with the story you just told about this person. And I think that is one of the big benefits of having the World Economic Forum event here later this year, because it will inevitably attract people to this country for the first time. There are many foreigners who come, who know Nigeria, who know the opportunities and difficulties, but it will attract a crop of new people who are here principally for the World Economic Forum, and hopefully some of those will realize the opportunities that are in Nigeria and realize that the press that they read abroad is maybe doesn't totally present an accurate picture of the country.
Just to add let me add one statistic to that. Last year and the year before, about 40% of the foreign direct investment that's set to become Nigeria is additional investment by the multinationals who are already here, which means they know that they're into a good thing. Yeah. Okay, that's one.
So they're adding to their own.
They're adding to their own investment here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The point there really is that those who know, those who have seen it, know that they can make a lot more money, so they're making additional investments. And this is a very serious point, because the point is that despite the challenges in the environment, these investments, these people who are already here are making these additional investments. What more additional investments will come if we improve on what we currently have? I think that point is very important, and I'm just trying to buttress Andrew's point about the bad press that we have, and in my view, the challenge to local press to dig deeper, to dig deeper and find the good things here, because there are very many good things. I'm not trying to underplay the negatives at all. I'm just trying to say there are good things as well. Capture both, because that is how, in my view, you should do your job better. The press in Nigeria, media in Nigeria, need to do their jobs better.
Okay.
And recall what Richard Branson said when he was pulling his investment out of Nigeria. And that thing was all over the internet, and I thought it was very bad press for Nigeria. What are your comments about what he said?
Well, I can't comment about what he said because I wasn't involved in that investment, and I don't know the facts, and I really don't like to comment when I don't know the facts.
Okay.
But
he may not have been telling the absolute truth.
I honestly don't know, so I can't really comment on that. What I can say is that, yes, there are people who come to Nigeria and are disappointed. That disappointment may be because of issues that may have been caused by things that the Nigerians didn't do right, may have been caused by bad business decisions, may have been caused by how their own partners acted. So there are people who come and invest, and those investments will fail. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole country the country as a whole is not a good investment destination. Bear in mind that in the US, in the UK, companies also go bankrupt. Bear in mind also that, for example, in the 70s or 80s, the UK, came up with a petroleum tax, because they felt the petroleum industry was, i.e., they changed the rules of the game on the petroleum industry. So I think that, there are successes, there are failures. If you look at the airline business, at least flying internationally, many airlines are clamoring to come to this market.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. On that note, we will have to wrap up this segment. Of course, Nigeria is going to be hosting the World Economic Forum Africa, and Channels is the host broadcaster, bringing it to the rest of the world. Alera, we'll have to close the segment now.
I'd like to say thank you very much to these two gentlemen who've come to enlighten us about the World Economic Forum taking place in Abuja later this year, Mr. Andrew Alli, who is CEO, Africa Finance Corporation.
Thank you.
As well as Mr. Ken Igbokwe, Country Senior Partner, PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return in just a moment for the home stretch? Question mark.